we've allowed GMOs. Who owns these patents? That's the question. Who owns these patents? Which labs develop these patents? And I remember earlier there, Brian, you mentioned, what is the justification of consumption of GMOs in Kenya? Our government says, and Minister of Agriculture says that we are food insecure. We cannot feed our population. So that's why we need better ways of food production. Part of those better ways of food production is changing our seeds. That is one of the better ways. And as an agriculturist myself, I ask myself, let's assume we are actually food insecure, which is a whole other conversation. I don't think we are food insecure, but let's assume we are food insecure. We want to sort the entire problem of food insecurity by changing seeds. Did we even have a conversation as a country, as the Minister of Agriculture? Did we even do data collection and talk to farmers and see what can be done in food production to improve food? I'll give you an example. Kitale is known to produce huge quantities of maize. A farmer in Kitale will use 4,000 shillings to produce one bag of maize, an average. So you know what our government officials do? The cartels, the corrupt. That maize, the farmers are supposed to produce and then they sell to NCPB. Because NCPB is the authority that protects or buffers the country against, say, the shortage of maize. What does our cartels and government officials do? They make sure they are giving the farmer a very bad price for the maize. So then you can imagine if I'm going to spend 4,000 to produce a bag of maize, at least buy my maize at least at 6,000. Hata nikule 2,000 per bag, you know. They give the farmer such a bad price. You know what they do behind the back? Of course, they'll come on media and they say, you know, we have a shortage of maize, and we are giving what is it called, an import license. You know, biashara ndio inachapwa hapo. So someone is importing maize from Mexico. Do you know how much they're bringing a bag at? Maybe 4,000, 3,000. So where is the Kenyan farmer going to sell their maize? They're stuck with your maize. But they do not care. These people, the capitalists, want to maximize on profits. They don't care the quality of the maize coming from Mexico. You remember some years back, there was a whole ship of maize that was filled with aflatoxin. And the Kenya Bureau of Standards raised the flag and said, no, this maize can't be consumed in Kenya. Kidogo, that guy was sacked. You know, and I understand he actually died a few, kidogo, akuishi sana. Now see our problems in agriculture. See the prices for food. See the cost, how high our cost of production is, Brian. It is so expensive to produce in Kenya. You know, we can't even compare ourselves with Tanzania, for example. Tanzanians have subsidized their cost of production. There are no taxes on farming in Tanzania. Kutoka fertilizer, farm inputs, everything zero rated, no tax. A Kenyan, if you're going to grow onions in Kenya, let me tell you the price of a kg of Neptune seed in Kenya, 40,000, 1 kg. And you know, on that 40,000, 25 is tax. 25 goes to the tax. Ato ukinunua tu pale kwa receipt unaona. So why tax farm inputs? Why tax fertilizer? You know, in Kenya we have a culture of kila mtu kukula, tukenda kukula. They want to kula everywhere they can. So out of that kukula, what happens? Cost of production goes up. So I'm just trying to show you this conversation about that we are food insecure is a very dishonest conversation. It is just an excuse to allow GMOs, because nowadays you cannot rely on the rains entirely on agriculture. But ask yourself, Brian, what percentage of Kenyan land is under irrigation? Very small percentage. We have the Kimwarel Dam that never took off. We have the Earth River drain basin, which is perfect for irrigation. no irrigation happens there. We just have more irrigation scheme. We have 1 or 2 irrigation schemes that are functioning in Kenya. And if you look back, isn't these are 60s, 70s. There's no new irrigation scheme that has been established in this country. So if you're not going to mitigate on rain, the shortage of rain, you're going to excessively tax a farmer. We have unfair competition in the market for food. Cost of production in Kenya becomes high. Other farmers can sell their produce in Kenya and make profits while the farmer can't make profits. What happens? The Kenyan farmer abandons farming. So when they abandon farming, the importer is very busy importing. Are you seeing? So the conversation around GMO being a modern way of food production is very dishonest conversation. It's a very dishonest conversation. So, and you see, this is a conversation we are having on the streets, in like me and you right now having this conversation. And thank you very much for doing what you're doing. These voices are very important because we are saying things that many people are not going to say, And when we have this kind of conversation, we are trying to show these people, you're just being dishonest with yourselves, So the GMO is, let me tell you, it is going to dent our health. When COVID happened, they said Africans are going to be dying in the streets. They said we are going to be collecting body bags. I'm sure you saw those clips all over. The Africans will be picked in body bags. They will be shock. The effect of COVID, of corona, let me call it of corona, were the lowest in the African continent. Worldwide, the effects were lowest on the African continent. Do you know why? Our food. Our food is, and when I have conversations with people, I tell people, food is not just for nutrition. Food is for medicine. So the kind of food you eat is medicine to your body. So because of that good food that we've been eating, we didn't really die as they wanted us to die. And now they've come for the food.
Yeah, and we actually have to be very aware on where they are taking us. And it's important you mentioned about the thing of South Africa and GMO. I think I was reading somewhere they have been growing GMO since 1997. And when it comes to hunger, 46% of their population is still in hunger. So when Bill Gates comes here and tells us, hey, if you grow more GMOs, you're going to reduce the incidence of hunger, it's a lie, right? The other thing they mention about is to reduce the amount of pesticides that are being used. In South Africa, since 2007 to 2012, 2007, they are using 12 million of glyphosate to spray their crops. By 2012, they were using 20 million. So an increase of 8 million more glyphosate that is being used on their crops. So the issue of we really want to reduce the number of pesticides that are being used is also false. So the issue of empowering farmers, majority of the farmers who took loans to actually buy the GMO seeds and plant them, almost all of them went bankrupt. So as you can see, there is a systematic, I think, misinformation from their part. They would like to label us a lot of being misinformed, but it's their misinformation that is actually leading to where we are right now. And I think we have to push back and say, hey, there's an alternative ways of growing your food, and this is what we've been doing. We've been in the planet for so long, and we'll be able to feed ourselves for all of this year. So it's time we look at this conversation and say there is another way that we can actually do these things.